All right. Hey, everyone. That was Sufjan Stevens with the songs Chicago and Casimir Pulaski Day. So yeah, beautiful songs. Let's go over the lyrics. So the song Chicago. I fell in love again. All things go, all things go. So this theme shows up over and over in this song of this too shall pass. The only constant in this experience is change. So I fell in love again. All things go, all things go. Drove to Chicago. All things know, and who is all but God, the divine, the all, the thing that's beyond names or description. It is the all and the nothing. We sold our clothes to the state. I don't mind. I made a lot of mistakes in my mind. So take no thought for your life. I made those mistakes. We get into those thought patterns where we spiral. So just to take ownership of that, you came to take us. All things go, to recreate us. All things grow. So this is describing the cycle, the death and rebirth, which is, yes, expressed physically with actual death, but it's also a spiritual process of transmuting. So we let the old die so that we can be reborn into the new, into the now. We had our mindset, all things know. So we set our mind and then come back to the all things know, God knows. You had to find it. All things go. So no matter how far we fall or lose ourselves, the all does find it because it's never apart from it. It's just an experience. I drove to New York in a van with my friend. We slept in parking lots. I don't mind. So the humility perhaps displayed there. I was in love with the place in my mind. I made a lot of mistakes in my mind. So perhaps this is attachment description. I was in love with the place, maybe. Made a lot of mistakes in my mind. You came to take us. All things go to recreate us. All things grow. So again, that transmutational alchemical cycle. We had our mindset. All things know. You had to find it. All things go. If I was crying in the van with my friend, it was for freedom from myself and from the land. So from the mental created hell that we can find ourselves in, and from the land, from the attachment, from the just the attachment to identity, to characters. So to have the humility to say, I made a lot of mistakes, but you came to take us. Christ comes to take us. That inspirational moving energy comes to take us. All things go to recreate us. All things grow. We had our mindset. All things know. You had to find it. All things go. You came to take us. All things go to recreate us. All things grow. And then it just overlays these. We had our mindset. I made a lot of mistakes. All things know. I made a lot of mistakes. You had to find it. I made a lot of mistakes. So it's like the humility to bow down and to allow the process to go through and to let go. We are not broken or incomplete. We're simply just carrying too much shit, to put it simply. So it's not that we need anything to fix us. We're not broken. We just need to let go. Let go of all the stuff that's holding us from our highest potential. It's a subtle shift in frame of mind, but it's important. All things go. I made a lot of mistakes. So let those go. But to let them go, we have to acknowledge them and humbly move through them and then let them go. And that's the process. So that was that song by Sufjan Stevens. And yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's like carrying our mistakes as fuel for growth. Really, really honoring that part of the process. So the next song, Casimir Pulaski Day. This is a pretty sad song. It's about death, and but that is an important part of the hero's journey. And again, as I said, it can be expressed physically. It's also a spiritual process, but this one is more focusing in on the physical death. And yeah, so we'll just read that. So 2, 3, 4, goldenrod and the 4H stone. Goldenrod and the 4H stone. So this might be referring to, like, goldenrod's the flower and the 4H stone could be just something from his life, a memory. But H is 8. So 4 8s would be 64. Yeah, I'm not sure what else is. I'm sure that there might be more meaning to that goldenrod, because the gold and the rod, we are sort of the golden rod, reaching to the heavens with the gold at the head to receive the sunlight, which is the light from above, and the 4H stone, that maybe I'm sort of imagining maybe 4 8s interwoven. You could create a pretty neat symbol spiraling through that. The 8 being the infinity symbol. So maybe it's the fourfold nature of man represented through the infinity symbol, the infinite cycling, the 4 portions of the 4 seasons. Yeah, there could be a lot more there, but there's just some things I see. The things I brought you when I found out you had cancer of the bone. So again, this relationship with death as a part of this experience as well. You know, there's so much of the modern day society is all about denying death as it's a taboo topic that nobody really wants to talk about or deal with. And then when it happens, it's this flurry of expenses and no room for grief or mourning, no way to really like process it well. And yeah, and then it just becomes something to fear because it's unspoken, never talked about. It's just something to fear. So to rekindle our relationship with death, knowing that it is a part of this cycle, no matter how well we do follow the process of alchemizing our body to become the rejuvenated man. Say you live for 100,000 years. Well, that's a long time. But after 100,000 years, you might either get to the point where you say, I'm ready to die, or something could happen. You know, so there just is that inevitability in the infinite timeline, infinite possibilities, that death is a part of it. So much better to become, have a relationship with it willingly and ahead of time, instead of letting it all crash into us. Your father cried on the telephone, and he drove his car into the Navy Yard just to prove that he was sorry. So possibly some more stories from his personal life. Could be deeper meanings in that, but I'm not sure there. In the morning, through the window shade, when the light pressed up against your shoulder blade, I could see that what you were reading. So in the morning, or at dawn, when day breaks, when the sun, SUN, rises. So this is sort of like, yeah, sort of a representation of the Christic element coming into the space, perhaps, and just a story. All the glory that the Lord has made, and the complications you could do without, when I kissed you on the mouth. So this love, even death is a part of the love story. This is all part of the love story. But death is an integral piece, because death doesn't lessen our connection with love. It actually strengthens it. You know, and that's how we can find higher meaning when someone we love, or perhaps a pet or something we care for dies, we ask ourselves, why do we go through this? Why do we have this? Why experience such sadness? But then to really see it from a high vantage point, like how much deeper is our appreciation of love than to have that experience, and then to eventually learn that death is no loss or no ending, and that everyone we ever have loved, we get to reconnect with on the other side. So there's deep meaning into having these experiences like this that might not be apparent from a lowered perspective. But when in doubt, zoom out. So Tuesday night at the Bible study, we lift our hands and pray over your body, but nothing ever happens. So this is sort of mocking the literalist Christian view of, the whole, what do you call it? The ritual where communion, where you're celebrating Christ's death by eating his body and drinking his blood, and taking all of these things that were meant to be very allegorical, but then turning it into some cannibalistic ritual weird thing, which, we can transmute that. I'm not saying that if people ever go to a church, you shouldn't participate in that because you're just encouraging it. We can transmute those things even as well. But it is sort of bringing attention to the focus on death in that way, as if it's, instead of remembering the true essence, it's solely focused on the body that has ceased to animate. But that's really just the body, and not to negate the beauty of the body. But once it's no longer being used or animated, then it's not the essence of you. So nothing ever happens because we're just praying to either a dead Jesus or hyper focusing on the death of people we love instead of their essence, what they carry forward. I remember at Michael's house in the living room when you kissed my neck and I almost touched your blouse. So this paints the picture of innocence. So like the innocent story of moving through finding or discovering love in that way, but also the relationship with death sort of interwoven with it. And just the maybe confusing elements of none of these things being really talked about in modern society, and how they're just sort of shamed and pushed aside, dismissed. So here's a song to at least speak to them. In the morning at the top of the stairs, when your father found out what we did that night and you told me you were scared. So again, painting that picture of the shame and guilt that's imposed for the natural curiosity within those who are young, and what that leads to. And if we just shun it and shame it, then it's not like it goes away. That's our deep-seated nature, and for good reason, because we're wired to come together in all the ways. So let's not deny ourselves who we are, but it's all about transmutation to express it in the highest way. And that can only be done if we don't keep it in the dark, but bring it to light, both the sacred sex and the death process, all of it. All the glory when you ran outside with your shirt tucked in and your shoes untied, and you told me not to follow you. So again, the shame and the guilt from that. Sunday night when I cleaned the house, I found the card where you wrote it out with the pictures of your mother. On the floor at the Great Divide with my shirt tucked in and my shoes untied, I'm crying in the bathroom. So this sort of gives the impression that that's a part of the story as well. Maybe her mother had died, or on the floor at the Great Divide. Yeah, this split that he's feeling between the honest expression of love that he's feeling and the great divide of these societal conditions preventing that, perhaps. Yeah, just some thoughts. I'm not sure there. In the morning, when you finally go and the nurse runs in with her head hung low and the cardinal hits the window. So the religious shame that's put in as well. Or no, not religious. I was thinking cardinal from a religious perspective, but I guess you could see that. And the nurse runs in with her head hung low and the cardinal hits the window. So maybe there's a deeper something here with that.
Did I say something about that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, a cardinal is often like a messenger from the grave, like for somebody who's passed. So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Oh yeah, that's a good call. Thank you for that. So maybe it's alluding back to the cancer of the bone, the death in that point. And the nurse runs in with her head hung low because she's announcing that that death has happened. So yeah, that's a good catch. That's likely what it is. In the morning, in the winter shade. So winter, again, the season of death. On the 1st of March, on the holiday, I thought I saw you breathing. So maybe the the holding on to, I thought I saw you breathing, of just like seeing your body, or on the 1st of March on the holiday. I guess that's not quite in spring, so that'd still be winter. But it's like peeking through the remnants or the potential for new life, maybe. And then it says, all the glory that the Lord has made and the complications when I see his face in the morning in the window. So just our, again, by this unspoken relationship with death, we can grow confused, and even perhaps angry at times at God or the divine for taking our loved ones away. So all the more reason to talk about. And that's how the song kind of ends. All the glory when he took our place, but he took my shoulders and he shook my face, and he takes and he takes and he takes. So sort of that frustration of feeling like we're losing something. But that's for us to transmute and realize that there is no loss in that, but also to allow ourselves to have the mourning and the sadness and all the range of emotions that come with experiences like that. And to even see those as a beautiful, beautiful layer in this experience. They're a vibrant color in the color wheel for what paints this experience as it does. So yeah, it's a sad song. It's a very beautiful song. But that is that one, just our relationship with death, turning loss into compassion, to love. So yeah, that was, again, Sufjan Stevens with the 2 songs Chicago and Casimir Pulaski Day. So I hope y'all enjoyed that. And yeah, so welcome to another Quest-i-on, the quest to illuminate the single eye, the quest I am on to figure out what's going on here and what am I doing and who am I and all these things. And the more that we, it's not necessary that we come together, but why not have an opportunity to share space and ask questions and see what comes up? And so that's really what these shows are about. It's just an opportunity to gather and talk about anything and have where nothing is off limits. Nothing is out of off topic, because it's all kind of, and find that specific thread that we're all together. So at any point you do have a question and you want to jump in, just raise your hand and I'll open up the mic and we can get to your topic. And yeah, I do some you submitted some questions as well. Prior to here level call, you can always default to written questions, just a little bit in that way. To go over now the fund and fundraising, I'm not sure I've said it too, but really well. This, if you had that and had an app, was a huge success. And great with it. We had many veterans, and it was because what the foundation is about. It's about disaster relief and veteran aid. So we had quite a number of veterans came and were honored by their attendance, and many of them relayed that they really enjoyed the event, and it turned out quite well. So yeah, I gave a little speech on there, and there were some other guest speakers, and I ended up being like the main audio-visual presentation media manager, all in one kind of thing, which was a lot to deal with and do. But I'm very happy with how it turned out. So if anyone's interested in, I wouldn't imagine you'd want to sit through the whole event, but you can if you want to. It was live streamed both on my YouTube channel and also graciously hosted by SGAnon. He put it on his Rumble channel as well. So the whole 6-hour event was hosted on there, and periodically I would come by and do little interviews with some of the guests that were there, and whenever I had time to, which wasn't very much. And yeah, it turned out really well. So thank you to everyone who supported any which way for that, and even just energetically gave support in that. Just really appreciate you. Yeah, we had a blast. And learned a lot for future events too. So people are already asking about next year's event, which Nadine, she was kind of overwhelmed at first by that idea, because it was so much work to do to get this set up. But I think in a few months' time, I think she'll be, she's excited about next year as well. Just at first we're just going to unwind before thinking about that. So yeah, again, just thank you for all the support there. And yeah, big shout out to Rick Smokey, who was just a powerful help with financially, energetically, in so many different ways. He printed out so many of the flyers that we used and gave so much. He helped to support others to be able to attend, which was just very gracious and kind of him. And we were all there, cheering Rick on. Like I was so grateful to get the opportunity to bring Darth and his 3 older children, Darth and Joanna and their 3 older children, to the event, because they had never been to anything like that before, never really had gotten dressed up before like that, and they all had a wonderful time. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and Lila was there as well, and Cheryl was there as well, and we just had a great time. So thanks again, everybody. And yeah, and what else? Just a reminder that I am 100% donation supporter to do all that I do. So if you find yourself wanting to contribute to help out with all the efforts that go on for this, feel free to go to my website, justincarpenter.org/contribute, or just click on the contribute button on the main page, and that will take you to all my links where you can help out. Any little bit helps. So I appreciate anyone who does chip in for that. And even just, there are other ways you can support by sharing the work that's here, or even just liking and commenting on things wherever they're posted. It's a big help, because it helps to get the word out a bit further. And yeah, and then if you have any other ideas on ways to help, I am all ears, whether that's administrative work or taking notes or things of that capacity. I would love so much to be able to hire somebody full-time to help, because I just imagine all the things that we could do. And I know that's going to happen at some point, but until then, we'll just keep on trucking along in the ways we have. So thank you to all who do help in any ways that you do. It's really a team effort, and I appreciate that so very much. And yeah, just also a reminder that I'm helping to support the Bali and the Lions of Uganda Children's Ministry in Uganda for all that they do. He's got almost 30 children that live there with him full time, and many other children in the community that they support. So yeah, there've been a few donations that have come through recently, and I really appreciate that, to just keep them a steady amount, to help keep them going. Help cover their rent and food needs and all of that. And it's amazing that they can. I mean, it's not a lot, but they can get by off around like $250 to $300 a month, which is way more than I can afford to keep doing. Thank you to and how that goes along. Any if you help to me to go pass you bring it and go and it a quick see start today. I think that's again, and that will open up your mic. There you go.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
loud and
Always
clear.
forget that. Hello. So I've been thinking a lot about wondering what is this choice we're going to have to make? And I started out thinking like, oh, it's a good or a bad thing. Like you're going to choose, like, or maybe it was a political thing. This was like a long, long time ago. Maybe it's who's going to, choose Trump or that type of thing. And then I realized, nah, it's bigger than that. I don't really know what it is, but I guess I've just been wondering what your thoughts are on that, because I feel like I make choices all the time. I'm changing as much as I know how to change, at a time. And then kind of takes time. Like if I change my food, then that changes my body, and then I have to allow time to adjust, those kind of things, those kind of changes. But I'm endeavoring to learn how to love bigger, how to give bigger, how to step further than I've, thought I could step before in things that I do. And I guess I do feel like I have limitations on me, which I want to have. I think the thing, if I could put it in, I would choose freedom to love, that type of thing, those kind of things. So if I could give everything I had to give, I would love it. Like I would give everything. If I didn't need anything, I could just give it all. So I think of those kind of choices, and I just wonder if you have any thoughts on, there's going to come a point where we have to make a choice. I'm feeling like it's not really a good or a bad thing, but maybe it's very, very individual. Like I remember in, when we were in church, and it would be, Jesus is going to come back, and we were just always waiting. And then I realized one day, gosh, waiting is like a really low state of mind. I don't like waiting around. It's more, it can't be that. It just can't be that. It's got to be more than that. And I came to, this is just my own conclusion, that it's got to be individual. As we each grow, then we attain to the next level that we are ready for. And maybe it's that type of choice. So I just wondered what you think about that.
It's such a great question, and I really appreciate you asking it, because it's actually the the theme that I spoke about at the Foxhole Foundation Gala, it was just a 5-minute, mine might have been less. It was very brief, but I was describing the choice, and I framed it. It's often more exciting to speak about the larger problems that we face, like war and hunger, poverty, corruption. All these things are important to know about, but really they're just a delayed effect, because we live in a cause and effect reality. So those things that we're seeing, these larger problems, they're an accumulation of causes that lead to that delayed effect. So what really is the cause? And the cause is exactly what you're describing here, which is the choice in each and every moment. And it's not, as you've so wisely discovered, it's not the religious way of saying, oh, I'm just going to wait for Jesus as my savior to come, and then that's what I'm going to choose, is I'm just going to hop on his spaceship and fly off, to heaven. That's how mainstream religion presents the choice, is like, no, just wait for that moment, but you better say you believe now so that you can kind of like pre-choose it. And if you keep choosing that, then you're good. But don't worry about all the other things that you do, because, whatever, you're just a worthless sinner, so you're probably going to screw up anyway. Like, that's, as you said, that is a very low frequency way of being and just waiting for a savior, waiting for a handout. It's a very powerless victim mindset that we need a savior. We need to have somebody do it for us. And it takes us away from the importance and the responsibility of that day-to-day, moment-by-moment, second-by-second choice that we make. And so to really frame that choice, I find it helpful to remember the dualistic nature of this experience. So there's good and there's evil. There is light and there's dark. There is love and there's fear. There is freedom and there's slavery. There is, it doesn't matter where you go, there's always going to be a duality representation in this experience, because that is the only way for the perception of separation to exist. But really, they boil down to the theme, or the central theme that I find easiest to describe this duality is connection versus disconnection. So to me, that's the choice. That's the choice in every moment. Are my thoughts, my actions, my words, are they leading to a state of connection? A connection with myself, connection with those around me, connection with creation itself, with the divine. Is my being moving towards connection? This would be the Christ. The Christ is that influence within us that moves us, that inspires us. The inward spiral of the Christ moves us towards that connection. Whereas the disconnection, the anti-Christic element, are putting importance in the separation as the foundation. So when Christ runs your life, and I'm not talking about a literal being that walked the earth. Yeshua was a Christic being, but I'm talking about that energy that exists in us. It moves us to that state of connection, because it builds its foundation on the fact that there is no true separation other than for the experience. So the only way that I can have this perception and pretend to be different and have a different vantage point and bring my character's unique characteristics to the table is if I have this perception of separation. So it's not a bad thing. The Antichrist is not a useless thing to just discard and throw away. That's why Satan is often viewed as the god of the world of physicality, because it is. The only way for the physical experience to exist is if there's some opposite force to the connection, because the highest representation of that connection is the singularity, is the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-connected representation of consciousness. And so we've been there. We've done that. And we are that. But in order to have this experience where I can be born and even pretend that I have a body and I'm moving about in this way and I can interact with other aspects of consciousness, there needs to be some polarizing opposite force. And really, it's not even a force. It's not even a polar opposite force. It's just the absence. So disconnection is just the absence of connection. Darkness is just the absence of light. Fear is just the absence of love. Slavery is just the absence of freedom. So that's why if we want to view it as an opposite force, it's always less powerful, because it relies on the one, but there is really only one. So coming back to your question about the choice, it's not about some delayed thing that we choose when we're face to face with Jesus or whomever we think is going to save us. It's about each and every moment. How do I respond at the cash register when they're kind of snarky or rude to me or whatever? Like, do I respond with more rudeness and snarkiness, or do I respond with a kind but connected way of saying, hey, I hope your day goes better, or if there's anything, whatever, just present it in some way. Like, I see that you are reacting to me in this way, but I'm going to respond to you with kindness. Or how am I treating my partner? Am I speaking to them kindly? Or am I always focusing on what they're not doing, the problems that they have? When I pass by, traffic is a great example. How are my thoughts towards being projected at others while I'm driving? Other aspects of consciousness, other aspects of God. That's why Jesus said, how you treated the least of these is how you treated me. Because there is no separation. So any way that I'm treating somebody in a transactional sense, in a usury way, or I'm using them, I'm just getting something out of them, then I'm acting in that antichristic way. I'm encouraging the disconnection, the separation. I'm encouraging the divisive and warlike reality. Now, in reversing this, I'm not saying that war is necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes to bring connection back, there has to be a powerful force to stop the devastation of disconnection that has been occurring for so long. So it's not to be so passive and allowing that we just allow ourselves to be walked all over in the name of quote unquote unity. Actually, the move to unity is standing up to that antichristic element, the bullying element, the harm-inducing layer of us, not from a sense of I'm judging you or condemning you, but from a sense of like, I'm not putting up with this behavior any longer, and I'm going to stop whatever harm that's being caused so that you can regroup and come back to self. that's still leading towards connection, because whomever is operating in that way is in such a disconnected state that it would be enabling of me to allow that to continue, especially if it's harming others, creating more trauma, more disconnect. So it can be nuanced depending on the scenario, but if our aim is true, if we're humble enough to redirect when we find ourselves missing the mark, and to allow that divine guidance to bring us to that state, towards that state of connection, then we're allowing the Christ to guide us in all moments. And it's very challenging, if not impossible, to do that in all moments. So I'm not saying to judge oneself harshly if we find ourselves moving towards a disconnected state, because that act in and of itself is a disconnected state, to judge ourselves harshly. But it's just an opportunity to regroup, to humble oneself and say, okay, I need to realign. I was going all over the place. Let's come back. And that's why the journey of the prodigal son and daughter, the son in the scriptures who left the family and went off and squandered all the money and fell into all sorts of hardship and all sorts of sin and whatever. But when they returned, it was like this warm greeting. No matter what they'd done, they came home. So that's the way the divine views us. No matter how far we fall into the disconnection, the anti-Christic way of being, as soon as we truly repent and come back to that. And that doesn't mean repent to some church or we need some external validation for that, but true repentance of the heart. To say, I acknowledge what I've done and I'm ready to repair. I'm ready to shift. So then we come back to a connected point of view. And it doesn't mean that we dismiss whatever it is that we've done, but we're actively seeking to connect, move back into that space. So in that possessed state that I was, falling into that anti-Christic way, wherever I created disconnection, that's where I want to start. I want to reconnect. So it just becomes a very simple way of viewing all layers. And of course, Satan is the deceiver. So there's going to be times where we're deceived by our ego into thinking that we're moving in a connected way or we're standing up for what is right. But then if we find out that we're not, and we haven't been, then that's the humility to say, oh, wow, okay, you got me. You got me, ego. You got me in that moment. And thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the opportunity to grow. But let's move back to connection. Let's own whatever it is that I've done and let's shift. So yeah, just simply that's the choice. That's the choice that we face in every moment. And when it becomes less mental and more just a being, because if it's like something I have to always decide, and I'm not saying it's bad to be consciously aware and choosing in each and every moment at first, but the more that we do that, the more that we practice that, then it becomes just a natural way of being. And that's why the Christic message of simplifying even the 10 Commandments down to just 2 and really 1, if we want to get really simple. Love the Lord God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Treat your neighbor as yourself. Simple. And he couldn't even say this because it would be considered blasphemy. But if you know that everyone around you is a part of God, all of this creation is a part of God, then you just need one. You recognize that there is no real separation other than for the experience, and there's no room to cause harm. There's no room to treat anybody else anything other than with the highest amount of love and reverence, which again doesn't mean we put up with shit when somebody is operating in a possessed, disconnected way. Sometimes we have to be very blunt and stop that, very forceful. That's what Trump is doing right now. That's what the White Hats have been doing. They've been showing that. And then they're working. The Christ is very active, moving in them. They're moving in a connected way, even if it seems like the immediate actions are creating disconnection. It's shifting towards that ultimate connection. So we trust those movements. And if we align in that very simple framework of how we view things, then anytime we fall out of it, it becomes a quick realignment. And the quicker we get at that, stepping into humility. Don't let pride take you and have you convinced that you're just right about everything, and the ego will shift you into all sorts of different directions. So as often as we can, approach with humility and be willing to shift and come back to that connection. Are my actions, are my words, are my thoughts, are they creating connection within myself, around me in my relationships, to me in the divine, to me in nature, the creation itself? Is everything that I'm doing aligned in that connected way? And if it's not, then don't judge yourself too harshly, but just shift it. Just shift it and repair where needed. And it just becomes a simple process that is simple, but it doesn't mean it's not challenging. It's very challenging at times. And that's the nature of it. That's the way we go, or you can play the game the other way, which is the antichristic route, which is to say, no, I'm going to emphasize disconnection to the point where I can enslave and use everything and everyone around me. That's the other way. I don't advise going that way, but it is important to know what that way is so that we don't haphazardly walk in both, which is what we've been doing for so long. Our world has been controlled by those who did want to shift towards this disconnected state, to where everyone was disconnected as much as they possibly could be. And everyone, even good people, were tricked into using money as their god, and then making decisions that created much disconnection, much discourse and issue. So just come back to harmony instead of discord. So yeah, I think I'll just leave that there. But again, thank you for asking that. It's a great question, and I'll just leave that there and pass it back to you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah, the simplicity isn't always so simple to simplify things, but that's what I work on doing. It's like, oh my gosh, because we create such complicated situations sometimes that then we have to untangle them and unravel them and come out of them, and then get back to that simple way of living. And I've noticed when I do have to make a really hard choice, it's not like it's painful. Like I remember when I stopped the job that I had, and it was, I knew, it's like, wow, I didn't realize how much I had gotten used to the accolades that job gave me, the attention that it gave me, and the rewards of it. And it really wasn't worth it. And so it was like, before I left it, it's like I knew, okay, well, you're not going to have a office anymore, and people coming to you, and you're in charge of things, that kind of thing. That's all going to go away. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. I don't want that anymore. But I knew that would be an adjustment, things like that. So the things that we give up are always replaced by something of greater satisfaction, I guess, reward in that way, not necessarily physical reward, but internal reward, which is really where our happiness lies. But I was noticing today, there was an article that North Carolina is paying for its residents to go to college, under $200,000, that type of thing. And I wondered if I am trying to release myself from the systems of the world. And so is government turning these kind of changes? Is it that it's shifting for the better, or is it a trap to keep people in the system? Is that part of the choice? Do you see it that way?
Yeah, another great question. And so previous to now, and it's not like it's an all at once shift. We're moving into where it is going to be more pronounced and will be more powerful in that way. Of the system was designed with an anti-Christic methodology to create more disconnection and problems, and create those circumstances like you're mentioning where you stepping outside of a job or whatever brings more physical hardships potentially and challenges with letting that go. And so people are faced with this seemingly unfair choice of like, do I step away from this even though I know in my heart I'm not wired for this, I don't align with what I'm doing, but I also want to be comfortable and live well, and money just becomes this thing that gets dangled in front of us to tempt us into really becoming disconnected with ourselves, because we make the choice to, instead of truly connecting with the self and living our passion, we deny that and pursue something for physical means. So that's that part of us through the spiritual alchemical nature. For those of us who are ready to step forward, that's where we're invited to let that layer of us die so that we can be reborn. And the circumstances within society were designed to make that so challenging and even deadly for those who made those kind of choices. Because in an anti-Christic created society, any Christic element that pops up is a threat. It's a threat to the entire anti-Christic system. So of course, everything's going to be designed to limit that, to either make it so challenging to actually go through. And then if anybody does actually put mechanisms in place where those people are either ridiculed enough to where they lose steam or physically killed. And so, yeah, those mechanisms have changed considerably. Like we're still seeing the remnants of it, and it's not quite over yet. Like with just to speak on the Charlie Kirk thing. So I did learn more about that, and it was confirmed that he is still alive, and he was taken out because, I might have mentioned this last time, I can't remember, but because Mossad was targeting him, and so they swooped in and faked his death and got him into safety. So there still are those elements. That's why Q said we're saving Israel for last, because it's the last bastion of the Antichrist. It's the last stronghold that they have on this earth, and that has to be approached delicately, because people's minds have been so warped to worshiping Israel, and Israel can do no wrong, and how dare you talk about that, because then you get labeled an anti-Semite or whatever. So back to your question, does something like that program, shifting to give money for people to go to college, is that a trap, or is that proof that the mechanisms are shifting? And what what makes sense to me is that the elements that do control government and are shifting things have been taken over largely, except for like in a pocket like Israel, but largely they've been taken over by white hat elements to varying degrees, depending on where you are, with America being sort of the stronghold of the Christ. That's where the Christic elements have taken over the most. And so until we get to that point where the world stops, financial system collapses, because that's inevitable, just in case anyone was still wondering, there's no way to like reboot this financial system. And it's only getting worse. Like if you actually know how to see what's happening based on the debt and interest accumulation, even with the work that Trump is doing, it's hopeless to resurrect that. So it has to go. And the White Hats know that. They're just delaying that process because that will be pretty intense whenever that happens. So they're getting everything else set and getting people's minds set and ready for that moment. So when that happens, everything's going to shift. But until then, I see the efforts of transitioning the elements that were designed in this anti-Christic way back towards at least a somewhat Christic way. And I don't think that's really being done. I mean, in some ways it's being done by white hats, the Christic elements that are in these positions of power. But I think in a lot of ways, it's just the suppressive forces of the anti-Christic elements are no longer there. So people's natural good nature is starting to come through and actually have success. They're actually able to do things that would make sense if you had good people that were running the show. So just using that specific example of a program to fund people to go to college, like that's just like what a good, if we're going to frame a normie kind of government program, that's what they would do. But prior to this, there was so much resistance from these anti-Christic elements to even allowing anything that actually helped people from coming into a space of position, unless it was tied to some, unless strings were attached to it in some way. So your suspicions around it being a trap, previously, I would say 100% that would be a trap. Now, I don't think so. I don't think it's a trap by any means. Now, is it something that, you know, I still don't see the huge transformation within the college world, and what they're teaching there is still a lot of nonsense. So that, you know, is it really something that I would pursue? No. Is it something I'd recommend? Not really, unless somebody was very, very wanting to go have that experience and do that kind of route. This might make it an easier thing to certainly not throw yourself into debt. So at least it takes away that element of the trap. But is it really worth your time to go learn things that don't matter? I don't think so. So all to say is I don't think it's like, you know, I don't think that's some larger plan. Yeah, we're going to implement these things in that way. I think it's just the bleeding over, or the poking through of people's good nature who are in positions of some power in government to say, yeah, this makes sense that we should do this for our people because we're good natured people. And most, if not all, of the real evil people have been dealt with, at least in this country. So I just think that those things would naturally start to unfold. And that's what Trump is doing as well, is he's saying, okay, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I imagine he's like, okay, well, if we still can't do this thing due to whatever circumstances, and just to reiterate those in case you don't remember, they're waiting on a set of parameters to be met. They're waiting on a certain percentage of the population to reach a threshold, reach a marker of awareness before they pull the trigger, before they kick this thing into high gear. Because once it does, you can't go back. And so they're pushing us to that point, and they're implementing different scenarios like the Charlie Kirk thing. All of those are being implemented by white hats to stimulate energy, to catalyze people, so that we get to that point where it becomes more accepted of why the military has to step in. If you do that too fast, too quickly, without good reason, then it leaves a lot more room for people to view it as this like oppressive thing that they're going to fight against. And the white hats don't want to fight. They don't want bloodshed. They don't want to create mass instability. They're trying to do this in the way to reduce casualties as much as possible. So that's the reason why they're going about it in this sort of methodology, in this way. So they're waiting on that threshold to be reached. And so I imagine that that Trump and whomever who do have real influence over the current system of government are like, okay, well, whatever. We might as well, while this thing is still running, we might as well use it for good. We might as well shift things for good to alleviate at least to some degree, the suffering that people have from all sorts of financial burdens and all these different things. So whatever these ways that they can shift that in this moment, they will do that. And that may or may not have been a direct influence from like the Trump administration. Or it could just be the natural movement of the good nature of people not being suppressed by evil any longer to say, hey, this would make sense to implement something like this, so why don't we do that? So that's a long-winded answer for that, but that would be my perspective there.
I'd love to jump in on that real quick too.
Yeah, please.
Hey, hi. Hi, Susan. I just wanted to say hi. And this is Lila. And I just wanted to give a little bit of my viewpoint on that issue because I've directly been living that reality. When COVID happened and my very lucrative bodywork business was put on hold for 8 months in my county. I lived in Sonoma County in Northern California, north of San Francisco, and that was one of the most stringent counties in America, second only to New York City. So I really was not allowed to work that entire time and put my hands on people. And then the vaccine came, right? And then I didn't really I wanted to because it's my life's work, but there were a number of situations that aligned that made it that I did not work. And one of the most being that 99% of my bodywork clientele were very left, very liberal, and very much believing in the pandemic narrative and the vaccines. And remember, during that time, at least where I lived, it was very, very common to want to know everybody's medical choices, and there was no conversation really about HIPAA or violation of HIPAA if somebody were to ask you that. So quickly, my thriving practice became decidingly and abruptly to an end under the eyes of God. So at that point, I actually went back to school. I had gone to college in Hawaii or the University of Hawaii. I went to university and I did quite well, but I also never finished. I never got my 4-year degree. And that had always been something that I'd toyed with, but I knew how crazy liberal and misleading the institutions were that were around me. So I really would have only done it to have a degree that would give me the credentials to maybe do something else like, a family practice or something like that. So I lived that, and I went through, classes towards my AA in that area. And very luckily it was during COVID. So I was able to do a lot of the classes online. And my feedback would be that if you're kind of thinking about it, or there are reasons that it is financially helpful for you, that I would actually highly recommend it. And not maybe for the typical normie reason of like, I'm going to be able to get a degree and then work here or something like that. But I had an amazing experience and really came full circle to something that I knew I was meant to do since I was a young girl, which was writing. And I took a number of English classes and creative writing classes, and it relit the fire, and I was able to experience it from, such a different vantage point in my own life because I was older and had lived more life. It was so healing. Now, it also was very educational as far as being and seeing what a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds are being taught. And that was something I did not expect, but was really fascinating. I took a lot of, because I'm basically working through a eventually, if I do it, a master's in sociology and a double major in sociology and English. And I was taking a ton of psychology, and it gave me a very specific viewpoint into liberalism in America, which has been very helpful. I mean, even to the point that I was taking a psychology of sexuality 333 or something class, and it was in one of their textbooks, literally there was a whole page about NAMBLA, and anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like the rights for adult men to love children, right? A whole page educating these young people as far as what it is and what it entails, and basically no ethical teachings around it were taught, except that some people in this country have an issue with this behavior. Now, I never would have thought that I would have seen that in a textbook, among many, many other things, right? But it was very, very helpful for me to be able to understand where many of the people that are going to have different viewpoints of ours, those of us most of us that are patriots and in these groups, what they've literally been taught, at a very impressionable time, especially for men, 19 to 24, your brain's still developing, and women too, but especially men. So it was really so worth it. And there's also a ton of money that's available to take these. Not only are the courses now free, but you can get in programs with like adults returning to school or single parent. I was in a program for a single parent returning to school to complete her degree, and they'll pay for your books. And then you're entitled to get things like a Pell Grant. So there are ways that you can have, it can actually be financially intelligent to participate. Plus you are getting real teaching, in some of these things. And sorry, there's a loud motorcycle going by. Real teaching, in some of these places, and camaraderie and interest. I mean, you guys, the people that were in my classes, what an interesting group of people. I actually saw a funny Instagram about it lately, and this woman was talking about how college, especially community colleges, they're so amazing because it creates such diversity. You are in a classroom with probably people that you may never ever would have been around in any other setting, right? And I was like, she's so right, it's so true. So you get this really beautiful experience of meeting all these different kind of people and hearing, for instance, in sociology, I was able to hear so many different stories. I took a linguistics program, which, by the way, when I went to college, to a university, they didn't even really offer linguistics degrees. And that was completely fascinating and worth it. So, there's these things for like the education that were very helpful, but also the education of like, who are these fellow people that are living in America with us? These are all the people that we are going to be, working with after the Great Awakening, really, really start. It's actually just starting, right? Where everybody's waiting for the EBS and this, that, and the other. But the truth is like, that's just going to be the start. It's kind of like pregnancy, when you're pregnant, you kind of think, oh, when the baby comes, there's sort of that's the end point. But the truth is that's really just the start of being a parent, right? So, it's a really beautiful way of seeing what's happening with the culture that is part of America that is going to be healing hardcore. And I just thought that part was beautiful. Now, one more thing about that is that also there's a ton of new types of classes like permaculture and technology treatment. And I'm sure welding is going to become a huge thing because we're moving back into that realm in America, fabricating and so on. Yeah, some of it will be robotic, but understanding what's happening is really, just find what you love and then take it there. But all of these things are being paid for now at local community colleges and universities. And you can get, a degree or even just a certification with that, who knows how you'll use. So yeah, just wanted to share that. And if you're kind of like, oh, I have the space and time and, the interest, like, who knows what will come out of it, but it might be a really cool way to spend your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lila. Yeah, it's certainly it. We can transmute and find the treasure, the value in anything. So yeah, I'd say with a discerning eye around and being able to weed through any propaganda or anything like that, and that stuff seems to be lessening considerably by the day. And just to add to that, to the part of what was designed to destabilize this country and really the world was to take away the importance of trade schools and learning physical hands-on trades, and only putting the importance into like financial sector and the business world and how to make money, and sort of negating the physical trade work. So that stuff will probably always be valuable to some degree, because even with the level of robotics and AI and things that will help to reduce the toil and need to just work such lengths of time and so hard to do things, to produce things, there will always need to be people who maintain the equipment and build things with their hands, prototypes and all of that. So add trade schools to the list of things that will be increasingly important as we reconfigure our reality back to what's important and not to this unhealthy, inverted reality. So yeah, I agree with that. Just wherever you feel called to as far as what you pursue. And if you do pursue something, then definitely lean into any government assisted realities that you can, because it's all based on fake money right now. So while the fakeness is still there, invest that time into yourself. If you feel called to do that, of course, no pressure, no need. But if you feel called to do something like that, might as well. And eventually we'll shift back to a system where what is valuable will carry through, and what we have learned, no one can ever take that away from you. So learning is such a valuable way to spend your time. So anyway, I'll pass it back to you, Susan, if you have any follow-up or additional questions there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great, having both perspectives. Well, you guys are great because you make me feel like I'm so young. But I am, like I didn't feel like I needed to participate in Medicare when I retired, but I am so healthy and strong that I actually could go back to school if I wanted to. And I have thought, that I don't want to be on, like Medicare, that's going to go away. But it isn't even about the money. It's about the fulfillment. And, I used to dream that I wanted to be in an orchestra and play music in an orchestra. And, a lot of these dreams, and I even have crazy dreams about things. The most vivid dreams I'm having right now about things. I time traveled back to the 70s and I remembered what it was like to have to use a payphone and, not be able to make arrangements really quick. And I woke up and I thought, oh man, I hated that. That was so hard. It was so hard back then without a computer and knowledge. The knowledge gives us freedom to be able to find answers and connect with each other like this meeting that we do. It's just invaluable. And, for young people and women, and I think people my age, to not stop learning and growing and expanding, because, I definitely have a lot left, a lot of life. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. And right now I'm taking care of my 92-year-old mother-in-law, but I am thinking about, well, when that's done, now then I will have made that choice to watch her and help her. But when that's done, I'm going to have a plan, something that I want to do, and that will be my next phase of life, my next 100 years. I'm not 100, but thank you for all that. That's a lot of great perspective, and I hope that it helped a lot of other people too, because really helped me step back into feeling more of that limitlessness that we want to get closer to. So thank you guys. Great conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Susan.
Oh,
Go ahead, Lila.
sorry. I just wanted to say, do what you love. That would be my feedback on like a deeper level. Find whatever it is. I already have the vision of you. I actually grew up playing violin and then switched to cello. And I played at weddings, and I was first chair, and I played in extra orchestras and quartets. So I passed the baton to you. Like I could just see it. So that would be like the deeper thing that, I would say is just go where you feel interested in and, pursue that. And that one thing that I'll say a little more is this idea of asynchronistic learning, which I wasn't even familiar with, but you really can, even there now with, with the caregiving that you're doing, you can take all these classes probably for free online. And there's realities where you can do everything just with your, with yourself. The class is recorded. Or there's ones where you have maybe once a week and you're all on Zoom together, something like this, and you have the class, and then you do the rest of it from online. But there's so much available, and there's such different ways of teaching. Like there's this thing called the Khan Academy, KAHN, and it's free, and it's basically like you can learn almost anything. It's for all ages. It's for, was originally set up for children that are school age, but now it just has everything. And yeah, go that direction, and then it will just get clearer and clearer. And being a musician, my feedback would be, yes, if you can learn to play classically, music, if you can play music, that would be a great direction to go to start. And there is so much available for you to make that something that you are able to study very easily, however it is. So I'll have you in my thoughts around sending you some things if that's okay. And there's just so much possibility that you can just even start now.
Yeah, agreed. And the please let me know when you play in your first orchestra, because I want to be there.
Yeah, and dressed to the nines.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I'm just laughing. Thank you. I play piano.
Oh, wonderful. So you've already got a head start as far as like getting into the musical learning space. And just to add on to that and give a tip for anyone, if you want to learn something, use the AI, whatever your favorite AI platform is, and just type out that question. What are some great resources to learn X subject at home? Or if I have a budget of this, or if, whatever, you can implement all those parameters, and it will give you many wonderful ideas and websites and resources and things that you can engage with right now, that most of them don't cost anything at all. These courses that people have developed, that they're no longer looking for monetary compensation for what they've produced, but they're already there. And sometimes it's just recordings to go through. So usually you do have to pay for things where it's more engagement, where you're like working with an instructor and meetings and things like that. So if you want to go that route, then you can find things for whatever budget. But there is so much free stuff on YouTube, on Yeah, all over the place. So use the AI platforms to just ask those questions of like what's the best way to learn about X, Y, and Z, and you'll be amazed at what you discover there. So all the best to you, and excited to hear how that develops.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, I'll just give a pause and see if anybody else wants to jump in. Actually, Jenna, go ahead.
Hi, it's me. I'm kind of slow. I'm sorry. If I start crying, forgive me. But, it's been a hard few weeks for us. And you were talking about the bone cancer. And I was just sitting here thinking about my husband, Gary. You guys know him as Shadow Walker 77 in here. He just recently was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer of his nose, and they had to amputate. And it's been hard. It's been really hard. I need to know when these med beds are coming. He's a veteran. He did not deserve to go through this. The VA held him off, and he almost died on us.
Jenna, we are with you, and I'm going to do some work to see what we can do as far as getting you hooked up with the Foxhole Foundation, because that's a big part of what they do is reach out to veterans who are in need. And so I will personally follow up on that and see if we can work something in. But at the very least, our prayers are with you as far as med beds and things like that. Those will shift into that realm whenever the time is right, and it's not quite yet, but I know we're getting closer. So just keep on holding strong, hold on to hope, and we got you. We've all got you, and we're supporting you. So thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable with us. And I'm definitely going to keep you in my prayers. Okay.
The doctor initially said it was stage 1, but when they got in there and cut it off, it was suffocating him. Literally both nostrils were filling up. He was so brave. He did not take any medication or anything after this surgery, but what scared the crap out of me is the medicine his doctor put him on before the surgery. It dropped his blood pressure so low he stopped breathing. God got me into the bathroom after he passed out. God, I don't know how I got in there. The door was shut and his body was up against it, but I pushed my way in there. God told me, just breathe, I'll handle the rest. So I grabbed his face and I breathed the biggest breath I could. And he came to, and he didn't know what was going on, and he launched me into the shower. I was black and blue for days and scared, but he's alive.
Oh, God bless you. I'm going to do my best to call in support for you. And thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And now it's here. And so if anyone else listening has any ability to support or any which way, please offer your prayers and support in that sense. And any other ideas that anyone has, I'm all open. But like I said, I'm going to reach out to Jeff and Nadine with the Foxhole Foundation, because a big part is veteran aid. And so I think we can probably work something through with that. But I'll keep you posted there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know it's tough. It's tough for so many in these moments, and it's unfortunate that it kind of has to be this way for a lot of reasons. This precipice, we're being led to the very edge of reality, and in order for that old version of society to crumble, it's not always easy for everyone to go through that. So just keep the faith and hold on to hope. Yeah. All right. Well, does anyone else feel like jumping in? Anybody else got a question or topic or share thoughts on anything we've spoken about or anything you'd like to take us in a new direction? Feel free. All right. Well, this would be, yeah, so this one came from Rowan, who sent me quite a few questions. So I'm just going to do one of his at a time, and then if we have time, we'll get to more. So one of them was concerning emojis or symbols. Are they evil? And I've seen that kind of concept spoken about and floated around, and I just want to be, just clear on that. So there's nothing that is inherently evil. Evil has no claim on anything. Evil can only steal and attempt to invert and distort. But evil has no ownership. Evil does not create. So nothing exists that is inherently evil, including signs, symbols, numbers, letters, words. Nothing is inherently evil. So people, especially in the truth community, quote unquote truth community, have a lot of misconceptions about certain numbers and symbols and things. And they're like, no, we can't even view that or send that or say that, or because it's evil. It's got evil baked into it. So I just want to remind everyone that there is nothing that is inherently evil. And in order to make that known and apparent, we get to reclaim anything that evil has tried to claim. So by us advocating for a reality that, oh no, that symbol is evil, don't use that, or don't say this, or don't throw that emoji there, that's giving evil power. And it's creating that reality where they potentially have that influence over whatever that is through belief. We are eternally, infinitely powerful beings, but we become powerless when we believe we're powerless. Symbols and signs and numbers and words and things have no power over us unless we give them power over us. So don't stand under any symbol, sign, number, word, phrase, anything. Nothing stands over you. You as an aspect of the Creator, a divine carrier of consciousness of the Christ. There's nothing that stands over you. So, yeah, just to put it very simply, there are no such thing as evil symbols, evil emojis, or any of that. So just to make that point very clear. And yeah, that one's a pretty simple one. So I will just stop there and see if anyone else wants to jump in. All right. So next one, this is an anonymous question. So given that religion was contrived to control, how should the saints be thought of? Like Saint Michael, the archangel, the image of Saint Mary that Trump sent out on Monday last week. How do we relate to the saints, and how do we know who created / recorded the life story of each of the saints? So great question. And essentially these saints, or these beings, if we want to describe them that way, the angels, they're elements of you. They are no different than you, but they represent various archetypes that are like these these characteristics that show up time and time and again in this story that's always playing out, the story of you. So Michael, the Archangel Michael, represents the warrior. That archetype is always going to show up. There's always an element of every story, because there's really only one story, with the warrior. The righteous warrior that protects those who need to be protected. The righteous warrior that wields the flaming sword of truth to cut through the lies. That's the Archangel Michael. She mentioned Mary. So that's the nurturer, the caregiver, the divine feminine. So that element can be called upon. There's always going to be the sacred mother, the caregiver, the nurturer in the story. We can look at Gabriel. The Archangel Gabriel is the messenger. That's the voice, the speaker of truth. That truthful element will always be there in the story. So we can take any culture and find these same archetypes, and they can be named various things. You know, you can look at Greek mythology. You can look at Nordic mythology, Egyptian mythology, Jewish Christian mythology with the angels and archangels, and they all represent the same. They're the same story told countless number of ways. And so these archetypes show up, and we can certainly call upon them. There's nothing wrong with saying a prayer to Archangel Michael when we're needing strength, when we're stepping into a place of battle, or whether that's physically or otherwise. So this is the essence that you're calling upon, and you're not really directing that to anywhere else but yourself. You're calling upon that archetype within you because you represent all of them. And various elements of these archetypes might be stronger in us than at other times. And even throughout an entire lifetime, we might have a more of an inclination towards some or one or some of these archetypes than others. These are the different characteristics that show up. The 12 zodiac are archetypes. These are these common themes that continually show up. So while I was born a Pisces in my sun sign, the journey is to go through the entire story, balance all 12 to become the 13. That's why they stay away from the number 13. Again, back to the previous question about, are any numbers evil? No. In fact, the ones that they describe as evil are often the most powerful. Describing 13 as evil or 33 as evil. Both of these numbers are incredibly powerful, incredibly representative of us. 13 being the completion of the 12, the union of the 12. 33 being the completion of the journey within, going up 33 vertebrae in the spine. So going back to the archetypes and these various beings that we can describe, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It does matter what we name them, because there is power in names, not through the name itself, but really through the power of the collective belief or collective agreement on these archetypes. And that can shift. The archetype never shifts, but the name can shift. But there is a power in collectively agreeing upon a name for an archetype, because it adds all of our collective conscious intent into the power of that name. So that's as far as how the names came to be. I'm sure there is at least a perceived history of how they came to be written. I mean, the angels, Mikael, Gabriel, Israel, they're always ending in L, which is the Elohim, which are the elevated beings or the elevated aspects of us, no different than us. Yet these are sort of the initial characters that perhaps in the story we were just a few. Perhaps in creation it started with just a few, and then that dispersed and became more. Why not? But as far as like how these names were chosen and what they represent, there's a whole lot more as far as etymology and the emphasis behind words and phrases and how they're pronounced, and even gematria and how things show up, and whether a lot of that was intentional or not, who knows? Probably was to some degree, but some of it is just divine influence bleeding through. And either which way, it's sort of the same. But as I said, they can be represented in different ways and different names and different cultures and different time periods. But it's always been us. And it's always been the same story. And these elements always pop up. The continuous changing or configuration of these elements together makes the experience infinitely interesting and changing, because when you have the combination of these archetypes coming together and bumping it into each other's energies at different times in different ways, and you have every single one of us having these archetypes doing the same things but in different ways, and then we're all bumping into each other and doing different things, then it's an infinitely varying experience for this story to play out. But knowing the archetypes, the base elements of them, is very helpful. That's why something like tarot is very helpful as well. It's taking an archetypical view of the story, and learning to read the cards can be helpful in allowing the divination of what the cards revealed when we draw them and what elements pop up. But those can be represented in other ways. The archetypes are always the same. They can be named all sorts of different things, described in subtly different ways, but really the base elements of what these archetypes, how they show up, are the same. So it's a way for us to, simplify maybe energies within the story. And what I said to the one who asked the question, it's like, if it's helpful for you, like, do we need to call upon these elements? Do we need to call upon these archetypes individually? If it's helpful for you, absolutely go for it. Is it required, in order to connect with the divine? No, because there is only one. It's just the many faces and characteristics of the one. So sometimes it's helpful to distinguish me calling upon the warrior in those moments where I need strength. But at times, if I don't need to distinguish that, then I just call upon the divine, call upon God. Because that is, it is all of them together, which is you. So whatever way we feel best as far as relating with, communing with, connecting with the divine is perfect. It's perfect. So I thought it was a great question, and I think that's all I got on that one. So I'll pass it off and see if anybody else wants to jump in, either on this or take us in a new direction.
Just wanted to say bravo, perfectly said.
Thanks, Lila. Appreciate that. All right, so here is another question. Oh, this one came from just to share kind of a funny story. I won't share her information, but just to, I had an interesting individual message me on Telegram a few weeks ago, and for those of you on Telegram, I'm sure you know that there are always lots of spam messages and fake impersonators, and I always find it quite funny when it's like the profile picture is some attractive Chinese or Asian lady, and and they're like, "Hey, how are you? Don't you remember me?" And it's like block, delete right away because that's a fake. Sometimes I'll engage and ask, "Do I know you, or can I help you with something?" And then they immediately jump to trying to advertise something or just take information from me, and so block, delete. But I got this message from someone, and it was from a woman, and yeah, like a beautiful woman. And I was like, okay, normally I don't engage with this, but in the message it said it had a very unique message, and she said, in my meditation, I got your name in my head, and then when I looked you up, I found your website and found your contact information, and I'm just reaching out. I don't even know what to do with that. So I got back to her, and I kind of laughed about the normally how I treat getting a random message from somebody, especially if it's like an attractive woman in the profile picture. But we had a great conversation later on. She was like, this is strange for me. I don't even know what to do with it. And I was like, okay, well, that's the sort of joy of discovery. Thank you for leaning into that. I don't know what I'm supposed to share or what you're supposed to share with me either, but let's discover. And so we exchanged messages for a bit, and then we ended up having a call. And she was a budding in her spiritual journey, and just had a lot of questions about things. And so we were able to go through quite a bit of stuff. And I hope I didn't overwhelm her too much, but I might have. But anyway, this was just to share that kind of funny story of someone reaching out in a way that I'd never had before, by my name being revealed to her in a meditation. But she had a question in our conversation. How do you know, because I was talking about harmony and discord. And so she was like, how do you know you're in harmony or not? How do you know if you're in that flow state, if you're in that creative mode or not? And I thought it was a fun one to just go into. And it kind of goes back to the initial question that Susan asked about the choice. And it's not always as simple as just choosing, but by choosing to stay in a connected state, by connecting with self, others, and creation, then that's what allows the movement from the divine to connect with us. So we're opening that connection by being a vehicle for that righteous divine influence to move through. We're opening ourselves up to this powerful space of immaterial, non-physical influence, inspiration to flow through us. And that's where the creative essence comes from. So as I said, evil cannot create. So those who are practicing or participating in evil, they are not creative. They can be clever. They can be clever and manipulative and create schemes and to some degree. But as far as like pure creation, that's not just copying off somebody else. That requires the true essence of being in that harmony, being in that connected state. So how do you know when you're in that? I drew upon one of my, I love this book. I haven't read it in a very long time, but I always recommend it if if people are wanting a good one, it's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's a great book, very simple read. And he just goes over all these ways to bring us back to here and now, because that's the only space that actually exists. And anytime we step out of that, where we're dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we are in a discordant state where we're spiraling in thought patterns, and we're not here and we're not now. So one of the methods he showed, or one of the examples he gave of how do you know when you're in that here and now truly, what is the sensation that comes from that? And he gave this example of that moment when you're on a long hike and you're about to come to the top of the mountain, and that space, that moment where you just peek up over the very top, and you begin to catch your breath, and you're looking out at the panoramic vast expanse of this view, and everything ceases. There's no thoughts, there's no worries, there's no time, there's nothing other than just you in that moment and the beauty of this creation. That is that state. That is the power of now. And so knowing that feeling, that sensation, that feeling of peace and serenity, the peace that passes all understanding, and that moment where we're at the top. I'm not saying that is what's required to reach that state, but it's just an example of when we are in that state. So if you're familiar with that feeling, and it's not just there, it can be from listening to a beautiful song and feeling the warm and fuzzies of that song really, really engaging with you, and you're just lost in it. Maybe at a live music concert, and you're just so absorbed with the music that's playing that you lose yourself in all the good ways. Or you're in that creative mode where you're writing something or speaking about something or painting something anyway, and you lose yourself. You lose track of time. You lose all worry and focus and thoughts and things, and you're just there. That is the power of now. That is the harmony state. That's the flow state. And you can find many, many videos and things to describe, the flow state or being in that Zen-like reality. And it doesn't mean that and it can be found through meditation as well. That's kind of the goal of meditation, is to recalibrate and come back to that. So there's all sorts of different methodologies and ways, and even movements. There can be meditations through movements or things like Tai Chi or yoga that can bring us into that state. And there's practices of absolute stillness that we can go into that state. And there's practices that are completely undocumented, undescribed, and they're very uniquely your own, of just what is your routine to get to that state where I'm at peace, where the thoughts are not scrambling through my head. But it can also be very challenging to reach that, especially when you have a society that's designed to disconnect you from that. It's literally the basis of what the society was created around, was to prevent you from reaching that state, except in a very controlled way. So that's why they would prey upon artists and actors and musical performers and people in those venues or in those industries. They would control them to squeeze out that creative essence in order to capitalize on it, because the evil controlling the system couldn't do it themselves. So they had to take advantage of it and allow some creative essence to flow, but only in a very specific people, and only if it could be captured. So for everyone else, and if it can't be captured, that state was designed to be very, very difficult to attain, if not, through the noise and the distraction and the trauma and the stress, the worry, all of that keeps you from reaching that connected state, that harmony. So then everyone is just discordant, We're just hearing these screeching, ratchety, out of tune instruments playing against each other. And it sounds awful. And so that creates further distraction because we're bumping up against other discordant racket, and makes it even more challenging to reach that. So the moments of feeling that are few and far between, perhaps. At least they are in my life. It's not that I'm always there, but I know distinctly when I'm in that state. I know very clearly when I do lose myself to the moment and time ceases to hold any meaning. And all I am is just there in the moment, whether it's enjoying what is in that moment around me or purely just enjoying the being, regardless of what's around me, either which way. So the more that we experience that, the more we can learn our own unique signature of how we reach that space. But I would suggest don't get attached to any one particular method or that it has to be a certain way. There are some that are quite effective and they can be for some time. Always approach them without expectation that we will achieve or reach any which way, because the divine is fleeting. She's not always there in that way, because she requires us to be open, not to be rigid, to be open to however she's going to enter into our space. She's going to lead us. So if I get this idea that I have to reach her in this way, and I have this formula and this ritual, and I'm not saying that rituals and formulas are bad things. Some people are more structured in that way, and that calls to them more. Some people need the complete flow of however that unfolds. And sometimes you might have a period where the rigid structure ritual thing is what works for you, and sometimes a period of life where that doesn't. So just be open to where is the divine leading you, what's calling to you. She's always calling. We just don't answer very often. So where is she calling for you to do to reach that state of harmony, into that state of flow? And yeah, that's when the real magic starts. As the more that we can expand those moments, those feelings of being in that way, carry them into any situation, no matter how tumultuous or noisy or distracting it is, maintain that Zen state, that flow state, then that's becoming a pure and purer manifestation of the Christ, to embody the Christ in all moments. That creative energy that is always aligned with connection and expansion. To maintain that connection as the foundation, and then say, okay, we're connected now. How do we make this place more beautiful and more fun and vibrant? It turns into a party where no one is excluded. And it's just for us to enjoy, not for the sake of debauchery or hedonistic pleasure or numbing out, but truly for the highest expression of beauty to flow through us. Yeah, so that's how you know. That's how you know when you're in harmony, in that flow. And I don't really need to describe much, but I think we know when we're not. We're not when we're in that state of worry or fear or thoughts or spiraling around anger or frustration. I'm not saying those emotions are bad to have. They're often signals of what we need to do in order to come back to that state of connection. But if I'm any of those states outside of the peace, then I have my work cut out for me to address whatever those areas are, to come back to that, to harmonize once again. So yeah, I will just leave that one there and pass it back and see if anybody wants to jump in either on that topic or take us in a new one. All right. So here's another question here. This one's from Olaf. And let's see, it's a longer question. So let me just parse through this. So he said, I don't know if it's a calculated part of the movie or not, and I have no idea how possible calculated incidents like this will help the collective to rise. And I have no idea how most people will react when they see that everything was staged and most people are not dead. It feels like when, for instance, a close being has lied to you the entire time span, and at the end she says everything was staged and everybody, so-called dead people, is chilling behind a plasma wall in the mountains, like in Atlas Shrugged. I mean, WTF, the trust part will never be rebuilt. So how will the white hats win the trust of most of us back in the future? I mean, a lie is a lie and never the best possible choice. It's a very, very thin line, and I have no idea how everything will roll out. Or maybe it's a way to say you are your own ruler and you don't have to accept any laws but the laws of God. Interesting times, and we can feel the tension now. It's not a big incident for people outside of the USA, but I guess some waves will arrive in the news in Europe, Asia too. So yeah, great question there, and I really appreciate the just honest expression of the frustration within that, and well, I potentially, and it's a great representation of this very challenging position that the white hats are in due to the choices that they've had to make. Because this is not about a quick fix. This is not about, and it couldn't be. If it was about a quick fix, then the military would have moved in 2016, and they would have said, hey, we eliminated all the bad guys, and here we are, and you were being lied to about all the stuff, and let's just move forward. If they had done that, then the number of casualties from people fighting against that would have been astronomical. People are resistant to that kind of overt, seemingly oppressive force moving in, and that's how it would have been viewed. So that's what created the need for the intricate details of this plan to unfold. And it's a very difficult concept to put across. And I know that once it is learned about the level of disinformation that the white hats have had to employ, it is going to be very challenging for the masses to accept that. And I will just say, I know that I will be helping to ease that as much as possible. As someone who is not on the inside or does not have, I'm not sitting in a control room or receiving directives or orders on how to speak about things. I can appreciate why these things had to be done this way. As Q said, it had to be done this way. And as challenging as these decisions have had to be to make, to deceive your fellow man, all for the sake of bringing them out of hell. I know that's why. I know that they needed to do it. Because as I mentioned, if it was more overt and out in the open, the masses are not in a place to just readily accept that. That would have been much more devastating. And possibly wouldn't have even worked at all. So then we're just right back into the hellish reality that we found ourselves in. Evil is laughing, maybe having been thwarted for a temporary amount of time, knowing that people are still conditioned and programmed to fall back into the slave reality. And they're actually able to be coerced to wipe out the good people who were trying to help them. That's happened before too. We don't have to look any further than what happened in World War II. The only issue that he did was it wasn't earth-wide. So they've had examples of where this was attempted and where it did not succeed. So they're working with the best of what they have to make it impact and make it last, knowing that the masses are in such a immature state of being that unfortunately cannot handle the whole truth, at least not in this moment. So they've had to be treated like a child would be. And just like a child is not going to learn the gruesome, grisly details of everything that's going on all the time. Because, for one, it would just be too traumatizing. So it's not like it's not an easy decision to come to. But we have to realize, or at least I'm choosing to realize, the implications of doing things haphazardly and why this strategy has had to be employed. Why timing is everything. Why disinformation is very real and very necessary. I'm just speaking specifically about the people who have faked their deaths. That's due to a real threat. These people would have been killed. So the only way to actually save them isn't to employ, more guards and more bodyguards and more protective elements and all of that. That only works for so long. Eventually, when enough attempts are made, it's going to get through, especially when you don't have the full scope of the military at your disposal. And there's enough people who have made enough of a splash that they would have just been killed. So the only way to truly protect them is to fake their death. And as hard as and as challenging as that must be to relay that information to their families or to learn about it later on, it had to be done this way. There was no other option. So I am eternally grateful for the sacrifice of these individuals who have made the most challenging decisions to take the brunt of what likely will be much hatred by people who do not understand why these decisions had to be made this way. And they still do it because they love. Because that's what the Christ does. The Christ isn't looking for accolades. The Christ isn't looking for approval. The Christ isn't looking for popularity. The Christ does what the Christ does because it's moving us to a space of connection. And if we are so immature and dangerous, because don't get me wrong, when the masses center around an idea, they always have numbers. So if they get it in their head that they're the ones who are actually fighting for their liberation, if they are convinced that they are their oppressors, which is what the black hats have been trying to do with black pill propaganda throughout this whole thing, is to try and coerce people into believing that the ones who are actually doing what is right are actually the oppressors, to encourage the masses to rise up against them. Then evil just laughs. They laugh because they're getting what they want. And if the masses are going to do their bidding and remove the ones who are doing the most good, then evil has a vacancy to step right back into. So I agree. It is a very, very thin line of how to operate in this way without that potential happening, to disclose only so much at the right times when people are really ready to receive it. And I know that the majority will be disclosed, but for everything to be disclosed, it will take time. It will take time and a readiness of the populace for that to come through. Now, the important things, the major things, will absolutely be disclosed right away. They have to be. We can't be rebuilding a society built on lies. The big things, but the intricacies around who did what and how this plan had to go out and how things had to be done that someone could perceive as wrong, like the example I've used before of the White Hats taking over the COVID plan, which was very much a black hat plan to instill a further domination and control scheme to inject us with all sorts of different poisons, to enslave us further into their reality. That was taken over by white hats, but still let run. It was neutralized as best as they could, with the majority of the harmful injections being neutralized, but there were still some that got out. There were still some people that got hurt. And so one could argue, well, why did you let my family members die? Why did you let people who knew nothing better go take an injection that was going to harm them? And that's a very challenging question to answer without knowing the full scope. I imagine there's going to be many people who are going to be furious at that idea. But I promise you, I will be there diligently, continuously defending the actions of these brave souls who have done that. Because I know, I see the bigger picture. I see why it had to be done that way. They couldn't have come out at that time because it was not ready. If you come out at any point in time, you can't go back. And if you start doing things too early, you risk imploding the entire thing. And again, evil just laughs at that idea. So that is why timing is everything. This information is very real and very necessary. It had to be done this way. And Q outlined it for those who are willing and ready to hear that, so that there would be some on the tail end of it who held on to the plan. Trust the plan. Trust that the Christ is in control of this plan. Trust that it had to be done this way. Trust the wisdom of those who are executing this plan. That even if we can't see it, or if we don't ever see the full scope of detail of why things had to be decided to be done in a particular way, they were being done for that highest goal of bringing us back to connection, allowing the Christ to rise up in all of us. That's the Great Awakening. And this has been a war. There have been casualties, just as there are in any war. But the difference between what evil does in a war and what good does in a war, evil tries to enact as many casualties as they possibly can. Good knows there will be casualties, but makes moves to reduce them as much as possible, knowing that still actions have to be taken. And if no actions are taken, then evil wins. So it's a very challenging position to be put in. I agree. And it will be difficult to rebuild trust by those who fall into the mindset of just the base layer of why did you lie to me? Who don't truly take the time to understand the intricacies of why it had to be done this way. But I know that there will be this taken into consideration. And part of the disclosure is all of these wonderful people who had to fake their deaths telling their story, why I had to do this. I'm sure many of them feel terrible about having to do that, especially those who can't even reach their loved ones. To have to see the grief of their loved ones thinking that they're dead. That's got to be a incredibly challenging experience. So they will tell their story. They will relay the challenges that they experience from it. And they will stand firm in the reasons why it had to be done that way. This is not something that's easy. We chose the very hard route within this through our collective complacency of not stepping in and doing what was right. We chose this very difficult route. But nothing can stop what is coming. It's coming. And all we can hope is that it comes in the best way possible, where we don't have to wipe out our entire earth to start over. I'd rather not go through that reality, but that's always on the table. If we don't get our shit together, the earth has its mechanisms of recalibrating, regrouping. So the white hats know that, and they're attempting to do that and bring as many people physically alive through that transition as possible. Go through that smooth transition, as Trump likes to say. It's all with that aim. So again, I will be standing very powerfully, very consistently up to defend the actions of these amazingly incredible souls who have given everything and are willing to take the hatred of those who don't understand. I will be there to defend them. And I would encourage anyone who does have awareness of this to step up to that as well, because they're going to need us. They're going to need us to help with that. So let's help them out. But I'm not saying anything about you, Olaf. I really appreciate your question, and I think it's a great dialogue to continue so that we can prepare ourselves for that inevitable, that disapproval that's going to happen when people who are looking at this from a surface level, from a very base level perspective, are not going to understand why this had to be done this way. Why was I lied to? And the knee-jerk reactions of that. And understandably so. When we come out of realizing that we've just been lied to about everything, and then we're like, oh yeah, and the good guys were lying to us too? What the fuck? That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But it had to be done this way. To get out of this deceitful, lying system, it was necessary. And I am grateful to be moving towards a reality, once this is over, to where lying will not be tolerated for any reason. Where deceit will be viewed as something that has no room in this reality any longer. But that's only when we move into a Christic system. In order to destroy this anti-Christic system, the art of war is necessary. And the art of war is not always about being transparent, especially when your enemy is watching. So this information is very real and very necessary. It had to be done this way. So I'll just leave that one there. Thanks again for the great question, and I'll pass it off and see if anybody else wants to jump in or either speak on this topic or any of the topics we've spoken on, or take us in a new direction. Feel free. Oh, hey, Peggy. I think I got your mic up. Go ahead, Peggy.
Hey, Justin. I've heard you speak those words so many times throughout this journey of enlightenment, and each and every time I hear it, I just fill with not fear, but I fill with God bumps when you speak of this. And I just wanted to add to it that the plan was huge, and there would have been more people that would have perished in the long run if the white hats didn't do what they had to do to demolish the evil. So I just wanted to add that to what you have already said. And it also brings me back to when we were in Dallas, and this was like a really emotional moment for me when we went to go see The Matrix. And I don't remember if it was number 4 or number 5, but whatever one it was. But there was the part where the people, the actors, just kept shooting them and killing them, but then they just kept multiplying and coming back at them and multiplying and coming back at them. And that scene was so relevant to me that it brought me to tears for hours, because I felt the energy of the evil that the white hats had to actually destroy. And it was just a really profound scene for me, that it just brought me closer to the reality that what the white hats hats had to step into, and the military and everyone involved with them was so profound and so hard. And I mean, we've only been going through this for me 5 or 6 years. I mean, I don't know, some people 20 years, some people 30 years, but for the white hats and everyone attached to all of that, they've been going through this a really long time. So I just wanted to add that to what you've already said. And I just really appreciate your tone and your sternness and your compassion to protect and to stand strong for those that have actually really worked hard to set us all free.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, it's so true. I mean, to reflect upon people who have been fighting for the Christic way for generations, and to be met with such, I'm sure at times, like a hopeless state of seeing the anti-Christic elements just grow deeper and stronger, and for people to lose that life within them and to feel powerless against it at times, I'm sure, but to still fight because it's so embedded into them. You know, that is the Christ. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how dark it is. It doesn't matter how hopeless it seems. That's what the Christ does. That's what the hero does. And so these people are heroes. Heroes. The ones who are still alive and the ones who gave their lives for this. Heroes. So I will do anything to put that message forward to anyone who has doubts or gets upset with their actions or their behaviors just through a lack of understanding. But I'll of course do that with bringing understanding to it, and that's certainly helpful with communicating. And what will be very helpful when this operation is complete, at least to that degree, is there will be transparency on so much to give more reason of why things had to be done this way. Some people won't be satisfied even with that, but I will certainly be there to help any which way that I can. So thanks, Peggy. I appreciate that. And yeah, I saw Jill raise your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I actually didn't catch up on the Quest-i-ons from last strong, so I'm not sure if you already touched on this, but it did make me think of it with the conversation right now, because I knew Charlie Kirk's name, but I had no idea of what he was doing. Oh my goodness. For the kids and around campuses, I had no idea. I would have said, yeah, I think he's with Trump. But again, I knew nothing, and I'm wondering how many others didn't really know until after the caliber of it, I suppose, of his work. So in saying that, it seems to have started quite a revolution. So and you might have spoke about this last Quest-i-on, because it was after that, but do you think that this could have been, speaking of people who had to lie, the shot heard around the world? Because I always thought it was Trump, but this is really caused, like, people are actually talking to me about it because of all the questions about, was it real, or all these things popping up in TikTok and things, making their own people making their own videos and questioning things that it's almost been an in for me, I have to say, with my family. One, because they don't want to believe that it really happened, but two, look what it started worldwide. So I guess that's my question. What does anybody think here about that? The shot heard, the Q drop, I guess I'm asking about. All right, thanks.
Yeah, great question. So it seems like it's developing into that. I will just say, based on what I've been told by people that I trust, take it as you will, that when Trump got shot, that was actually an attempt to start that then, and it didn't take. So they're working with, while things are planned out, they still have to work with people moving in the direction. And so it's these are catalyzing events that are designed to bring about the scenarios so that they can move forward into the next stage. So when he got shot last time, that was supposed to catalyze people into moving in that way. And it didn't take. We didn't shift. It didn't agitate people enough to move in that direction. And people might get upset about this idea of agitating people towards a revolution or civil war or anything in that capacity. But it has to be done that way in order to truly bring in the military. It can't just be some fake conflict. It has to be real. People actually have to feel it. So that moment, at that point, the energy was not intense enough for that to catalyze. This one, another opportunity for that to be the shot heard around the world, seems to be moving in that more in that direction, where it is having that influential effect. So could it be the shot heard around the world? We'll find out if that becomes the marker in the story that we see, with hindsight being 2020, and we can review it. But that element of that catalyst is a part of this story, and I believe, due to the nature of what Q has been doing with time travel, I believe that they're not always certain how it will unfold. They just know the base elements that are going to play out. The details are not always clear, even at the highest level, as far as who did what and how that gets into play. They just know the framework of the story, and that's what was illustrated. So, and believe me, I don't begin to try and figure out how all of that works, because it's certainly over my head at times. But I do trust the information that I have been told concerning the attempts made during that event last time when Trump was shot, and what's playing out now as being another potential catalyst to bring us into that. As I mentioned before, it's like a pseudo, but not really pseudo civil war, where it's not going to be allowed to move to widespread bloodshed and violence. But initially, there might be some, in order to get to that scenario where the military has to move in. That's what allows this plan to move forward. And again, I know people might be upset by that idea of provoking, of moving the masses into that state, and the people that might get harmed through that. But you're talking about reducing the casualties as much as possible. And if you have the ability to foresee the number of casualties, even just from a data set perspective, they have the data of all of us, which gives a very accurate model of how people respond to various things. If they have that data to show, if we go forward in this way using these catalysts, these driving mechanisms, and we have, say, 10 million people that die, versus if we do it this way, maybe 1,000 people die initially, but those 10 million lives are saved. These are decisions that I'm grateful that I'm not making. And again, I will be very protective of those who have made these decisions, because I know it's not easy. And I know if those decisions are not made, then we're relinquishing to the potential that it could be much worse and much more devastating, given the nature of the system that we're coming out of.
Can I jump in
And
there? Bring
yeah,
out a point?
please.
So I'm 100% behind everything that you've just said. And it is important to note that we're not dealing with just one type of people. We're dealing with every type of people in the whole world, and we're trying to bring the whole world into this new state of salvation. And so we're not just juggling one ball; we're juggling a lot of balls here, and not all of us have the have the benefit of working with the looking glass technology and being able to see how all the timelines are collapsing and how people are moving. So we're really in no position at all to judge the white hats. So, like, for example, like Charlie Kirk being a great man, right? But at one point, he goes into the White House, and Charlie Kirk is very well informed. He's a very intelligent person. He's a very righteous person. He's a very good person. And he's complaining to Trump in the White House about America doing the heavy lifting on the bombing in Iran. Why are we doing Israel's dirty work? And why are we, and he's, kind of going off. And Trump had to kind of put him in its place and be like, listen, the Soviet Union gave Iran almost 300 demolition nuclear weapons. And they're still in possession of them. And those weapons had to be taken out. So the attack on Iran on their nuclear facilities, that wasn't just for Israel. That was for the rest of the world. Iran is still very much a bad actor, causing all kinds of trouble all over that hemisphere. They're still very active in Africa and all over the Middle East. And so then Charlie Kirk's like, oh, I didn't know, right? And so that's the way it is with the white hats, is that they're dealing with a lot of things that most people don't know. And even us, where we might be a little more aware than most of the population, we just don't know. And we're not privy to the battles that they're waging. And good people are still fighting and still dying for us. And we have the privilege and the luxury of going through the transition, and we're not in a war zone, and we're not having to fight for our lives. And they're doing everything they can to keep the country out of civil war. And who are we to complain about the manner in which they save our lives? Because that's what it is. Because if they don't do this, and if they hadn't done this, most of us would probably already be dead. So, I mean, the Black Hats were planning 10 years of lockdowns with booster after booster after booster. And they were planning on America being overrun 10 different ways. And because of the white hats, that hasn't happened and isn't going to happen. So is there deception going on? Yes. Is there some manipulation going on? Yes. But we don't know. We don't know what they have to deal with. And so I, for one, I'm going to show a little appreciation and gratitude for the brave men and women, the white hats that are dying for us, so that they can bring the world into a transition, into a better place where I don't have to fight the cabal directly myself.
Yes, very well said. Yes, absolutely. It's like we don't have the insight of the possibilities that we are moving to. I mean, some of us do have more awareness around where we could have headed, what that hellish landscape would have looked like if they had not stepped in and done the things that they've done. And it's up to us who do have some awareness to keep translating that to the masses who are catching up to this idea that, yeah, we were heading into hell. We were in hell, but we were heading to a much more hellish reality. And thank God that these people stepped in. And thank God that they did whatever they had to move us out of that. Knowing that these decisions are very, very challenging, very hard to work with, and could be perceived any which way. So yeah, God bless them, and I'm here to help. So yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, Jill, did you feel like that answered your question?
Oh yes, thank you very much. And I had actually thought about it quite some time, because it said how long it had been since the shot at Trump, and I was like, you could probably tell by the shares and what all the things that people were saying that weren't kind, to say the least. It didn't start. It makes sense. It didn't start what it should have, because people are still hating on him. Like -48 always said, nothing happens until someone's pissed off or excited. So I guess we can tell by our shares, etc. So people are being held accountable for terrible things that they're saying. So that's a step in the right direction. Some empathy all around. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, we are coming up to about 15 minutes left before I need to close. Just wanted to check. I saw your hand raised, Sarah, but I think you canceled it. I just wanted to make sure, in case you had something you wanted to share, feel free. If not, no worries. And yeah, if there's anybody else that has any closing comments or things they want to leave us with before we move over to music and wrap up the show for today. So I'll just give a quick pause and see if anybody wants to jump in. All right. Well, I'll take that as a wonderful sign that we covered all that we needed to today. Thank you to all who have submitted questions and are here live on the show. I didn't get to all the questions today, but I do try and keep track. And so feel free to send me questions any which way you can reach me, whether that's on a comment in a group or however, and I'll do my best to save that. If I forget your question and it's been a couple weeks and you haven't heard it, just send me a reminder. It's just me. I don't have anybody else to help me for the most part. People do chip in every now and again. But yeah, it's just me. So I do my best to keep track of everything. But if I forget something, definitely send me a reminder. It's not that I'm leaving you out or anything in that case. So yeah, thanks everybody for the show today. I'm just going to, while we have some time, I will go over the lyrics to the songs to carry us out with by Sufjan Stevens. So let me just pull those up. Yeah, so the next song is going to be Mystery of Love, which the lyrics are, this is really just a beautiful love song about the purity of love. There's a movement of this sort of expression of the sacred sex or sex in general, where we might be drawn into it through the eros or the sort of erotic nature that's built into us, and definitely more, it's built into all of us. It's more wild in men and can be more dangerous in men, but it's in all of us. But how do we shift that into the more feminine expression of that connected union, the sacred sex, and the symbolism of two becoming one. So that's what this song is really about. So, oh, to see me without my eyes. So without my eyes, as in with the senses, beyond the senses. beyond the physical eyes. The first time that you kissed me, boundless by the time I cried. So again, the kiss of the divine, boundless by the time I cried, boundless of time, boundless in general. I built your walls around me. White noise, what an awful sound. Fumbling by rogue river, feel my feet above the ground. Hand of God, deliver me. Woe, oh woe is me, the first time that you touch me. Oh, will wonders ever cease, blessed by the mystery of love? Lord, I no longer believe, drowned in living waters, cursed by the love that I receive from my brother's daughter. Like Hephaestion, who died, Alexander's, I don't know how you say that, Hephaestion, who died, Alexander's lover. I'm sure there's a mythological representation, probably maybe Alexander the Great, maybe referencing that, I'm not sure. Now my riverbed has dried, shall I find no other? So loving and lost, losing that love. Oh, woe is me. I'm running like a plover. Now I'm prone to misery. So when we fall out of that love and the pain that we can find, what comes from that? The birthmark on your shoulder reminds me. How much sorrow can I take? Blackbird on my shoulder, and what difference does it make when this love is over? Shall I sleep within your bed, river of unhappiness? Hold your hands upon my head till breathe my last breath. Oh, woe is me, the last time that you touched me. Oh, will wonders ever cease? Blessed be the mystery of love. So it's kind of this describing this mysterious nature of love itself and the expressions that we have with it, and how it can in one moment bring us such joy and connection, and in the other leave us feeling without and yearning for more. So to accept the full mystery of love and what it brings to us, instead of trying to put it in a box or capturing it or holding on to it, being attached to some version of it that we've perceived, but truly just allowing the fullest and highest expression of love to flow through. At least that's what I see. So that's mystery of love, the first one. And the next one, should have known better. This one starts in like childhood abandonment, despair, hopelessness, but then it transmutes. So it kind of goes through the whole process of bringing the beauty of that. It shows like grace, shows new love. I wrote some notes. So it's like the sun archetype, illumination, wholeness, the golden stage of alchemy, where it ends. So what began as a mistake and grief ends in light and renewal. So should have known better. I should have known better to see what I could see. My black shroud holding down my feelings, a pillar for my enemies. So my black shroud holding down my feelings, this suppressive nature that we find in ourselves, preventing our true nature from coming through. That's the Antichrist within us. The Antichrist and the Christ both exist within us. The Antichrist is really just the absence of the Christ. But it is a powerful presence when that absence grows stronger. Holding down my feelings, a pillar for my enemies. So that's what that suppression, that separation, that disconnection, that's where what causes our enemies to grow, which is, all within us as well. I should have wrote a letter, reached out to connect divine, and grieve what I happen to grieve, allow my fullest expression of emotion to flow through me, not hold on to it or try and dismiss it. My black shroud, I never trust my feelings. I waited for the remedy. Again, that conversation around waiting for a savior, waiting for somebody else to do it for us. That's always a trap. When I was 3, maybe 4, she left us that video store. Oh, be my rest, be my fantasy. Be my rest, be my fantasy. So maybe drawing upon the childlike wonder of coming back to that state. Be my rest, be my fantasy, as in the fantastical nature of the unmanifest and immaterial, again, connecting to that divine nature, maybe. I'm light as a feather. I'm bright as the organ breeze. My black shroud, frightened by my feelings. I only want to be a relief. So you can see it's sort of like transmuting the black shroud or the shadow. It is frightened by my feelings, the feelings of the true nature. I only want to be a relief. So this like this, I'm light as a feather. I'm bright as the organ breeze. So that Christic nature budding and emerging from within. No, I'm not a go-getter. The demon had a spell on me. My black shroud, captain of my feelings, the only thing I want to believe. So this is transmuting the black shroud. The shadow, the unconscious, that side of us is also us. So not to use that to push our feelings down, but to be a captain of my feelings. The only thing I want to believe, the Christ. But we first have to acknowledge that the demon had a spell on me. When I was 3 and free to explore, I saw her face on the back of the door. Oh, be my rest, be my fantasy. So when I was 3, maybe this is referring to like the Trinity. I saw her face on the back of the door, as in the face of the divine leading us, perhaps. I should have known better. Nothing can be changed. The past is still the past, so let that go. The bridge to nowhere. I should have wrote a letter, reached out to the divine, explaining what I feel, that empty feeling. Don't back down. Concentrate on seeing with the all-seeing eye. The breakers in the bar, the neighbors greeting. So come back to the present moment. My brother had a daughter. The beauty that she brings, illumination. So the illumination of the childlike wonder and the illumination of the self. Don't back down. There is nothing left. There's nothing to the left. The breakers in the bar, no reason to live. So that's the temptations of society in the bar, drinking away, no reason to live. I'm a fool and the fetter. Rose of Aaron's beard, where you can reach me. Don't back down. Nothing can be changed. Cantilever bridge, the drunken sailor. Yeah, there's probably a lot more there. But my brother had a daughter. The beauty that she brings, illumination. So it ends with illumination. So it's the full alchemical process of coming out of the darkness into the light, dark to light. So yeah, these are the 2 songs that I want to leave us with. So thanks for tuning in and for listening today. I really appreciate the conversations and everything that we've gotten into. So we'll keep on keeping on with these. And yeah, I don't anticipate any reason why we can't have a watch party tomorrow night. So I will send an announcement then. And yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are, and just appreciate all the support any which way. So sending out love, and yeah, I hope everyone takes care. So that's all I got, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.